The smell of grilled steak and garlic butter filled the air at Rosewood Bistro that Friday evening. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above white tablecloths as well-dressed customers laughed over wine glasses and dessert menus. It was the kind of upscale restaurant where reservations were made weeks in advance, where every detail whispered elegance and exclusivity. Then, the front door opened, and everything changed. A man rolled in slowly, his wheelchair squeaking against the polished marble floor. His left leg was missing below the knee. His right arm hung stiffly at his side, and his face carried the weathered lines of someone who had seen too much pain. His faded army jacket was wrinkled, his jeans worn at the knees, and his shoes, mismatched, one regular, one modified for his prosthetic, looked like they'd walked through hell and back. Every conversation in the restaurant seemed to pause. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. Marcus Chen kept his gaze forward, his jaw tight, his good hand gripping the wheelchair's control. He'd been to plenty of places where people stared, but tonight felt different. Tonight, he needed to see something for himself. Before we continue deeper into the story, I want to ask you something. If this story is touching your heart, if you're feeling what Marcus felt, do me a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button below this video. Don't just watch and leave. Become part of our community. We share stories like this every single week. Stories about dignity, justice, and the power of redemption. And while you're at it, smash that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And here's the thing I'm most curious about. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Because stories like Marcus's, they're happening everywhere. And together, we can make sure they end the right way. Now, back to the story. A young hostess named Brittany stood at the podium, her smile frozen as he approached. Her eyes darted nervously to her manager across the room. "Good evening," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite the tension. "Table for one, please." Brittany's smile became strained. Sir, do you have a reservation?" "No, but I saw you have empty tables." She glanced around, her discomfort obvious. "Well, those are reserved for, guests who called ahead." Marcus looked at the half-empty dining room. At least 6 tables sat completely vacant. "I can wait if something opens up." "Sir," Brittany leaned forward, lowering her voice, "maybe you'd be more comfortable at, somewhere more casual. There's a diner 3 blocks down. They're very affordable and, accessible." The words hit like a slap, but Marcus didn't flinch. He'd heard worse. "I'd like to eat here, please." Before Brittany could respond, another voice cut through the air, sharp and condescending. "Is there a problem here?" A man in an expensive suit approached, his name tag reading, Derek Mitchell, General Manager. His eyes swept over Marcus with barely concealed disgust. "No problem," Marcus said calmly. "Just requesting a table." Derek's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Sir, Rosewood Bistro maintains certain standards. Our dress code requires proper attire, and frankly, we cater to a specific clientele." A woman at a nearby table whispered loudly to her companion. "Oh my God, is he homeless? How did he even get in here?" Her date laughed, not bothering to lower his voice. "Probably looking for a handout. Someone should call security." Marcus felt the familiar burn of shame and anger mixing in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "I'm a paying customer. I just want dinner." Derek crossed his arms. "Even if I wanted to seat you, which I don't, our tables aren't exactly wheelchair accessible. You'd block the aisles, create a safety hazard. Surely you understand." "The ADA requires," Marcus began.
"The DAO doesn't require us to accommodate everyone who rolls through the door," Derek interrupted, his patience clearly gone. Look, I'm trying to be polite here. This establishment is for serious diners. You want a meal? Go to a soup kitchen. Now please leave before I have you removed." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Every eye was on Marcus. Some faces showed pity, others annoyance. A few showed nothing at all, as if he were invisible. A waiter named Kyle snickered to Brittany. "Betty's trying to scam a free meal. They always have some sob story." "Probably faking the disability," another server, Jessica, muttered. "I saw a documentary about that." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. He'd served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He'd lost his leg and nearly his life saving his unit from an IED. He'd spent 2 years in rehabilitation learning to walk again, learning to feed himself, learning to live with pain that never fully went away. And now he sat in a restaurant in his own country, being treated like garbage. "Please," he said one final time, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just want to sit down and have a meal." Derek's face hardened. "Security!" 2 large men in black suits appeared from a side door. They approached Marcus's wheelchair with practiced efficiency. "Sir, you need to leave," the taller guard said, though his tone was slightly more respectful than Derek's had been. Marcus looked up at them, then around at the watching crowd. No one was going to help him. No one cared. "I can leave on my own," he said quietly. As he turned his wheelchair toward the door, he heard the whispers follow him like poison. Thank God, he was making everyone uncomfortable. Why do they always have to make a scene? "I'm never coming back if they let just anyone in here." The evening air hit Marcus's face as the door closed behind him. The city sounds, traffic, distant music, people laughing, all seemed muted, as if he were underwater. He sat there on the sidewalk outside Rosewood Bistro, staring at the glowing windows of the restaurant that had just rejected him. Then, slowly, deliberately, Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. It was newer than his appearance suggested, a latest model iPhone in a military-grade case. His fingers moved across the screen with purpose, finding a contact labeled Rachel, COO. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered, crisp and efficient. "Marcus, is everything okay?" "Rachel," Marcus said, his voice calm but carrying an edge she'd recognize. "I need you to pull the personnel files for Rosewood Bistro. Manager, assistant manager, and front of house staff." There was a pause. "The Rosewood in downtown? That's one of ours. What happened?" "Just pull the files. I'll be at headquarters in 20 minutes. And Rachel, call an emergency board meeting for first thing Monday morning." "Marcus, what's going on?" "I went to check on one of our locations," he said quietly, "and I just got thrown out of my own restaurant." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Oh my God," Rachel finally whispered. "Which location?" "The flagship, downtown. The one we remodeled last year." His voice was steady, but Rachel could hear the pain underneath. "The one where I personally approved every hire." "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I'll have everything ready. Should I?" "Just the files," he interrupted gently. "I'll handle the rest." As he ended the call and began wheeling toward the parking garage where his modified van waited, Marcus Chen allowed himself one moment of emotion. Not anger, not even hurt, just profound disappointment. Because the man they'd just humiliated, the disabled veteran they'd mocked and dismissed, wasn't just any customer.
He was Marcus Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Restaurant Group, owner of 47 upscale establishments across 12 states, including every single Rosewood Bistro location in the country. And Monday morning, everyone who had laughed at him tonight was about to learn exactly who they'd thrown out into the street. Inside the restaurant, Derek Mitchell returned to his post near the bar, accepting congratulations from several regular customers for handling that situation professionally. "You did the right thing," a businessman said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Can't have people like that bringing down the atmosphere. I spend too much money here for that." Derek preened under the praise. "That's what I'm here for, maintaining standards." Brittany approached nervously. "Derek, should we maybe have—" "Have what?" Derek cut her off. "Given him a table? Let him park his wheelchair in the middle of the dining room? Brittany, you need to understand something. This restaurant isn't a charity. We serve a certain type of client, and that man definitely wasn't it." Kyle, the waiter, joined them with a tray of dirty dishes. Dude looked like he hadn't showered in a week, probably smelled bad too. "Exactly," Derek agreed. "Now let's forget about it and focus on actual customers." But as the evening wore on, something felt off. Derek couldn't quite explain it. He found himself checking his phone repeatedly, feeling an inexplicable sense of dread. At 9:47 p.m. his phone buzzed with an email from corporate. The subject line read, "Mandatory management meeting, Monday, 8 a.m. sharp. CEO attendance confirmed." Derek's stomach dropped. In his 3 years as general manager, the CEO had never once visited their location. Chen Restaurant Group was a massive company, and the CEO was practically a ghost, someone they only heard about in quarterly reports and company-wide memos. "Probably just routine," he muttered to himself, but his hands were shaking as he forwarded the email to his assistant manager. What Derek Mitchell didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man in the wheelchair, the man they'd humiliated and dismissed, had built his entire empire on a simple philosophy. Dignity for everyone, no exceptions. It was printed on every menu, embedded in every training manual, carved into the mission statement displayed in every corporate office. At Chen Restaurant Group, we believe every human being deserves respect, kindness, and a place at the table. Marcus had written those words himself 5 years ago, shortly after opening his 3rd location. They weren't just marketing, they were personal. Because Marcus Chen knew what it felt like to be invisible, to be dismissed, to be treated as less than human. He'd learned those lessons in the hardest ways possible. First as a poor kid growing up in foster care, then as a soldier wounded in service to his country, and now apparently as a customer in his own restaurant. As his van pulled into the underground parking garage of Chen Restaurant Group headquarters, Marcus sat for a moment in the darkness, collecting his thoughts. This wasn't about revenge. It was never about revenge. It was about ensuring that what happened to him tonight never happened to anyone else. Monday morning was going to be very interesting indeed. The sun hadn't fully risen over the city when Marcus Chen rolled into the Rosewood Bistro Monday morning. The restaurant wouldn't open for another 3 hours, but he had keys to every location he owned. The door unlocked with a soft click, and he entered the empty dining room, now peaceful in the early morning light. He positioned himself at a corner table, his wheelchair barely visible from the entrance, and waited. At 7:45 a.m., Derek Mitchell arrived, coffee in hand, whistling casually. He was always early on Mondays, liked to have the place looking perfect before the lunch rush. He flipped on the lights, completely unaware he wasn't alone. By 7:55, Brittany, Kyle, and Jessica had trickled in, all looking nervous. The mandatory meeting had everyone on edge. "Any idea what this is about?" Kyle asked, adjusting his tie. Derek shrugged, trying to appear confident. "Probably new menu rollout or some corporate initiative. These CEO types love their big announcements." "I heard he never visits locations," Jessica added. My friend works at the Rosewood in Boston. She's never even seen him. Well, we're about to, Derek said, checking his watch. Meeting's at 8 sharp. At precisely 8 a.m., the front door opened again. Rachel Torres, COO of Chen Restaurant Group, walked in wearing a sharp navy suit, her expression unreadable. Behind her came 3 other corporate executives, all carrying tablets and folders. "Good morning, everyone," Rachel said crisply. "Please gather around. We have important matters to discuss." Derek stepped forward, extending his hand. "Ms. Torres, I'm Derek Mitchell, General Manager. It's an honor to—" "I know who you are, Mr. Mitchell," Rachel interrupted, ignoring his hand. "Please, just sit." The staff exchanged confused glances as they took seats at a large table. Rachel remained standing, her eyes moving across each face with an intensity that made them squirm. "I'm going to ask you all a question," she began, "and I want honest answers. This past Friday evening, around 7:30 p.m., a man in a wheelchair attempted to dine at this establishment. Does anyone remember that?" The room went silent. Derek's face paled slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Oh, yes," he said carefully. "There was a situation. A gentleman who wasn't properly dressed for our establishment. I handled it according to our standards." "Handled it how?" Rachel's voice was ice. Derek straightened, gaining confidence. "I politely explained that we have dress codes and that our space wasn't suitable for his, accommodation needs. I directed him to other dining options more appropriate for his situation." "His situation," Rachel repeated slowly. "And what situation was that, Mr. Mitchell?" "Well, he was disabled, in a wheelchair. And frankly, Ms. Torres, he looked homeless. His clothes were inappropriate, and several customers were uncomfortable. I made a judgment call to protect the dining experience for our paying guests." Brittany shifted uncomfortably. Kyle and Jessica remained silent, their eyes fixed on the table. Rachel nodded slowly, tapping something on her tablet. "And the rest of you? Did you also feel this man's presence was damaging to your restaurant?" "He definitely didn't fit our usual clientele," Kyle offered weakly. Jessica added quietly, "He did look a bit rough." "I see," Rachel said. Then she looked toward the corner of the room. "Marcus, would you like to join us?" Every head turned as Marcus Chen rolled forward from the shadows, his wheelchair moving silently across the floor. The morning light caught his face clearly now, no longer obscured by evening darkness. Derek's coffee cup slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. Brittany gasped audibly. Kyle's face went completely white. "Good morning," Marcus said quietly, positioning himself at the head of the table. "I don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm Marcus Chen. I own this restaurant, and the 46 others in our chain." The silence was absolute. Jessica's hand covered her mouth. Brittany's eyes filled with instant tears. Derek stammered, "Mr. Chen, we had no idea." "No, you didn't," Marcus agreed, his voice calm but firm. "And that's exactly the problem. You didn't know who I was, so you treated me like I was nothing, like I didn't deserve basic human dignity, like my disability made me less worthy of a meal in a nice restaurant." "Sir, please, I can explain," Derek started. Marcus held up his hand. "Let me tell you a story, Mr. Mitchell. 15 years ago, I came back from Afghanistan missing a leg and with nerve damage in my arm. I spent 2 years in Walter Reed Medical Center. When I finally got out, I tried to restart my life. I'd always loved cooking, so I applied for a job as a line cook at a small restaurant in San Francisco. He paused, his eyes distant with memory. The owner took one look at me, at my wheelchair, at my prosthetic, and said, "How are you going to work a kitchen like that? You'll slow everyone down. You're a liability." He didn't even let me demonstrate what I could do. Brittany was openly crying now. Jessica stared at her hands. Marcus continued. That rejection broke something in me. But it also lit a fire. I taught myself to cook one-handed. I learned to navigate a kitchen in my wheelchair. I experimented with adaptive techniques. And eventually, I opened my own small restaurant with my military disability benefits and a loan from the VA. Rachel picked up the story. That restaurant became profitable within 6 months. Within 3 years, Marcus had 4 locations. Within 7 years, a chain of 20. Now, 15 years later, Chen Restaurant Group is worth $1.2 billion and employs over 3,000 people across the country. Marcus leaned forward. And do you know what our founding principle is? The value that's printed on every single menu, in every single location. Derek's voice was barely a whisper. That everyone deserves respect and a place at the table. Everyone, Marcus repeated. Rich, poor, disabled, homeless, young, old. Everyone. Because I built this company on the belief that no one should ever feel the way I felt that day. The way I felt Friday night when you threw me out of my own restaurant. Mr. Chen. Derek fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Please. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I had known, if you had known, you would have treated me well, Marcus finished. But that's not good enough, Derek. You should have treated me well because I'm the human being, not because I'm wealthy, not because I own this place. Because every person who walks through that door deserves dignity. He turned to Brittany. You told me to go to a diner because it would be more affordable and accessible. What you meant was that I didn't belong here, that people like me should stay in our place. Brittany sobbed. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Kyle spoke up, his voice shaking. Mr. Chen, I said terrible things. I thought you were trying to scam us. I'm ashamed. Please, give us another chance. Marcus sat back, studying each face. The room held its collective breath. Finally, he spoke. I'm not going to fire you. Everyone looked up in shock. But, Marcus continued firmly, you're all going on suspension without pay for 2 weeks. During that time, you'll complete a comprehensive training program on disability awareness, unconscious bias, and inclusive service. You'll volunteer 40 hours at the local VA hospital, serving meals to veterans. And you'll write personal essays about what you learned from this experience. Derek's jaw dropped. You're giving us a second chance? Everyone deserves a second chance, Marcus said. I believe that deeply. But second chances come with conditions. If any of you ever, and I mean ever, treat another customer the way you treated me, you're done. Not just at this location. You'll be blacklisted from every establishment in our company. Rachel added, additionally, this location will undergo a complete staff retraining. Mr. Chen will personally oversee the implementation of new protocols to ensure this never happens again. Marcus looked at each person in turn. I want you to understand something. I didn't reveal who I was on Friday night because I wanted to see how you'd treat someone powerless. Someone who couldn't fight back. Someone who looked like they didn't matter. And you failed that test spectacularly. But, he continued, his voice softening slightly, I also believe people can change. I've seen soldiers who thought they were done discover new purpose. I've seen employees who made mistakes become my best managers.
Growth is possible, but only if you're willing to face your own prejudice and do the hard work of becoming better.
Jessica spoke up, her voice barely audible. Why are you being so merciful to us? After what we did? Marcus was quiet for a moment, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn photograph. It showed a younger Marcus in his army uniform, standing on two legs, smiling broadly, full of life and hope.
This was me before Afghanistan. Before the IED. Before I became someone people stare at or pity or dismiss.
He set the photo on the table.
Losing my leg didn't change who I am inside. But it changed how the world sees me. And that's been the hardest battle of all.
He looked around the room.
I'm giving you second chances because someone once gave me one. Because grace is more powerful than punishment. Because I believe that this moment, this shame you're feeling right now, can become the catalyst for something better.
Derek wiped his eyes. I promise you, Mr. Chen. I will spend every day proving I deserve this chance.
Then prove it.
Marcus said simply.
Not to me. To every customer who walks through that door. Especially the ones who look different, who struggle, who might not fit your idea of what belongs in a place like this.
Rachel distributed folders to each staff member. These contain your training schedules and volunteer assignments. You start tomorrow. Any questions? No one spoke. The weight of their actions and Marcus's unexpected mercy had left them speechless. As the meeting concluded and the staff filed out, Derek approached Marcus one last time. Sir, can I ask you something? Marcus nodded. Why did you come back? After what we did, you could have just fired us remotely. Why face us in person? Marcus considered the question carefully.
Because change doesn't happen through emails and termination letters. It happens when people look each other in the eye and see their shared humanity. I needed you to see me. Really see me. Not as a CEO or a homeless veteran or a disability statistic, but as a person who just wanted dinner. Derek's voice cracked. I see you now, sir, and I'm ashamed of what I missed on Friday. Good, Marcus said, not unkindly. Hold on to that feeling. Let it make you better. As Derek left, Rachel sat down across from Marcus. You know, most CEOs would have cleaned house, fired everyone, made an example. Marcus smiled faintly. I'm not most CEOs. Besides, running a restaurant empire taught me something important. The best teams aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who learn from them. Still, Rachel said, that took incredible grace. Grace, Marcus repeated, looking around the empty restaurant. Maybe. Or maybe just the understanding that we're all one bad moment away from being the person someone else judges. He wheeled toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Rachel, I want this story shared in our next company-wide training. Not to shame these employees, but to remind everyone why we exist. Why I built this company. Consider it done, Rachel replied. As Marcus left Rosewood Bistro that morning, the sun was fully up, bathing the city in warm light. His phone buzzed with messages,
News outlets somehow already getting wind of the story, investors checking in, other restaurant owners requesting interviews. But Marcus ignored them all. Instead, he headed to the local VA hospital, where he volunteered every Monday morning, serving breakfast to veterans, many of whom were struggling with their own disabilities, their own battles with a world that didn't always see them. "Morning, Marcus!" an older vet called out, wheelchair-bound and missing both legs. "Heard you had an interesting weekend." Marcus laughed, serving him scrambled eggs. "You could say that, Tommy. You could definitely say that." "What'd you do to them?" Tommy asked, grinning. "Gave them homework," Marcus replied, "and a chance to do better." Tommy nodded approvingly. "That's why we respect you, brother. You remember where you came from." As Marcus looked around the dining hall at the faces of men and women who'd sacrificed so much, who carried invisible and visible scars, who deserved so much better than what society often gave them, he felt a deep sense of purpose. This was why he'd built his empire, not for the money or the prestige, but for moments like this, for the ability to create spaces where everyone, truly everyone, had a place at the table. And on Monday morning, as Derek Mitchell began his first day of volunteering at that same VA hospital, serving meals alongside the man he'd once thrown out, the real transformation began. Not through punishment, but through redemption. Not through shame, but through grace. Not through exclusion, but through the radical act of giving someone a second chance to become who they were always meant to be. Because in the end, that's what Marcus Chen had learned, both in war and in business. The truest measure of strength isn't how hard you can hit back when someone wrongs you. It's how courageously you can extend your hand and say, "Let's both be better than this." And sometimes, just sometimes, that changes everything.